Good day, IT pros and tech savvy persons. It's your girl Riri with another INFOSEC alert. Dropbox and GitHub had a data breach, but not really. Hmm. Well, let's look into this further. On the 2nd of November, Dropbox reported a data breach, but users didn't need to be worried because the attackers didn't get any access to anyone's Dropbox accounts, password, or payment information. Instead, what they took was code from about 130 private repositories that the company had on GitHub's platform. So, what happened? Let's look at what happened. These compromised repositories contained, according to GitHub, copies of third party libraries, slightly modified for use by GitHub, internal prototypes, tool sets, and config files that their security team uses. But they didn't get any code for core apps or for the Dropbox infrastructure. Okay, all right. But attackers also found API keys. This is getting more interesting. API keys are used by the developers of Dropbox, and a few thousand names and email addresses of Dropbox employees, both current and former customers, sales leads, and some of their vendors. GitHub is quoted by saying, "Our security team moved right away to make sure that all the exposed developer credentials were changed and to find out if any customer data was accessed and stolen. We also looked into our logs and couldn't find any signs that abuse had been successful. To be sure, we hired forensic experts from outside the company to check our findings. We were also told the right regulators and law enforcement about what happened, and it had been reported and communicated immediately." So let's break down the attack. The attackers were able to get into the network by pretending to be Circle CI. Circle CI is a company that makes a platform that Dropbox developers use for continuous integration and continuous delivery, known as CI/DI. And if you are unfamiliar with that, there's an opportunity there. I'll highlight that at the end. Circle CI is actually pretty well known. They're working with several big name companies, not just GitHub, and they're on the slide posted there. So I will not call them all out. But it's not like they're a one off company. They have quite a few high name and high profile customers. Dropbox users logged into Circle CI with their GitHub credentials. So if those credentials were stolen, GitHub accounts were also stolen. I'm going to credit this next graphic to the Get Guardian blog, who put this up immediately to break down this particular phishing attack. And it's really not, again, that complicated. It's an attacker phishing email, imitating something legit through that legitimate looking page. Someone goes ahead and clicks on it, scrapes that information, gains credentials, and are able to then log into other areas of the network or platform once they're able to gain access. So, hardware keys, we're going to look into that a little bit later on into the post, but that's where prevention would have occurred. Continuing with another quote: "Some of these emails were automatically sent to our spam folders, but others ended up in Dropbox users' inboxes." The company was quoted by saying, "These emails looked real to employees." To go to the fake Circle CI login page, enter their GitHub username and credentials, and then use their hardware authentication key to send a one time password OTP to the malicious site. I'm never shocked at how much this works. It seems just like almost like a 90% shot. If you were a hacker, why would you not try? You're gonna at least get one person who's gonna click on. Not promoting it, but it's an effective method. Um, when one of these attempts worked, the attackers were able to get into of Dropbox's GitHub, one of Dropbox's GitHub organizations, and there were 130 private code repositories, and there was the potential to gain access to each of them. Lessons learned. Let's have a little lessons learned. Let's have a little root cause analysis in network administration and network engineering fashion. So apparently, earlier last month, in October, GitHub first noticed um, that Dropbox's GitHub accounts and repositories were being used in quote unquote strange ways. The company then reported this information to Dropbox the next day. Dropbox security teams didn't say whether the credentials were actually stolen um, in the Circle CI branded phishing campaign that GitHub found the month before on in September. So there's repeated attacks. So an attack in September, attack in October, and a successful one in November. Still, the event made them hurry up with their plans to use WebAuthn. I'm going to pause there for a moment um, just to talk about WebAuthn. It's a project that began in the early 2016, but has really started growing in movement and popularity with the mandate for MFA, multi-factor authentication. It's a JavaScript-based API which um, it exposes a web compliant browser and enables authentication to talk to other authenticators such as key fobs or fingerprint scanners. It's typically paired with FIDO for authentication standards. Now, there's tons of websites on both of these, so I'm not going to spend too much time there. WebAuthn and FIDO are usually paired together, so you'll be able to find information on both or jointly. But I thought I would mention it here specifically because I would have thought at Dropbox and GitHub, this would have already, with either company, it would have already been a mandate. But that just goes to show you companies won't necessarily make the IT investment until they have to. So, Dropbox team, another quote, got a couple quotes here, which is actually a good sign. Couple quotes. Even the most cautious and skeptical professional can be tricked by carefully crafted messages sent at the right time and in the right way. This is exactly why phishing is still so effective and it's also why technical controls are still the best way to stop these kind of attacks. The quote continues, before this happened, we were already in the process of switching to this form of multi-factor authentication that is harder to trick. Soon, WebAuthn will protect our whole environment with hardware tokens and biometric factors. Um, So, phishing emails pretending to be from a company and gain access to the management company. It looks like they also had issues with Okta, and they sent In a similar occurrence, they had with Cloudflare was not affected because its employees use physical security keys as the second form of authentication. So that's a case study where the WebAuthn slash FIDO implementation was successful. So, rating. Let's get to the rating here. Despite this very convenient statement that was made in the public relations part of this story, I still give both companies, both Dropbox and GitHub, a thumbs up. Um, why? They did triage, they informed their customers, um, they made an immediate improvement into their security posture, and there wasn't a real impact on the customers at the end of the day, which we may find later on that could not be the case. But at least in what was reported here in this particular incident, there was some great corrective action that came out of that. So thumbs up to both companies, and Circle CI, I'm sure they're going to be getting on board and in improving their security as well. So what can you glean here? What can we glean out of this? If you're looking to transition, if you're looking to sharpen your skills. So we see here multi-factor authentication. That's going to come up more and more and more. What techniques or what technologies are implemented, that may change, but MFA, that's here to stay. CIDI, continuous integration and delivery, just something to look into, especially if you already have a background, possibly in testing and QA. WebAuthn and FIDO. Again, lots of information out there for both of those technologies. But I'm sure with this breach and the immediate focus on its quick implementation, I'm sure other companies are going to probably be pushing to do the same as well. Phishing, as we stated here, phishing continues to be the top method to gain unauthorized access, and it probably will for a while. So, that being said, there's another post. Stay tuned, stay alert, and until the next, talk to you soon. Bye bye.